Hello, everyone. My name is Owen Godimer. I'm the community manager at TechWell. I'm joined today by Tom Stiehm, the CTO at Coveros. Tom, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Tom, so another anti-pattern we can chat about is not having a production-like test environment. What are some
Right.
of the symptoms of that and some of the consequences you see from not having a production-like test environment?
So the idea is that if any software that's not tested in the environment it's going to run into in production, the best assumption is that it's not going to work. So having a production like test environment means that it to some scale it's the same as production. So it's the same OS, the same software configuration. The tiers are broken out the same way. What often happens is in development and in lower environments, you don't traditionally don't configure things the same way as you do in production. So a developer on their development computer may have one server where they write and test all their code, and then they check that in all the way on the other side in production. It may be broken into 4 different servers that have to talk to each other across the network. In the development environment, the servers may be talking to each other through the JVM or something. So they're using in-process communication versus network communication in the production environment because you're distributing the different parts of the application on different servers. And that, in fact, happened in one of the projects I worked on, where we had 4 distinct types of processing. In the development environments, they all ran on one developer's laptop. They progressively broke out some in the testing environments, but there was none where all 4 were broken out like it was in production. So the first day we put this software in production, the software just didn't work. And what we found out is that there were 2 types of processing that had to talk to each other a good deal, and everything that we processed had to use those 2 servers. And they had never been broken out into separate servers before. They'd always been on the same JVM. So naturally, that configuration was never tested, and in production, we found out by Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong does. It didn't work. And we spent a few days figuring that out and then fixing the code so it would work. And from that point on, one of the things we really focused on that project was, let's make sure we test in a production-like environment, because the amount of processing we were doing was large per every request, and we had to make sure that all these things broken out into different servers worked when the communication was over the network versus just over the in-process communication.
Yeah, so when you have situations where teams don't already have production-like test environments, what are some initial steps you can take to move the team towards having those environments?
Yeah, so one of the positive things about virtualization and the cloud is that makes it easier to create production-like test environments. Things are configured the same way. So in the Java world, when I started programming, it was extremely common for all developers to work on Windows, and all development environments to be Solaris or Linux. So you would go from, I'm creating this on my laptop on Windows, and I'm putting it in production in a Unix environment or a Linux environment. And there were always problems in doing that. And so one of the things that we've recently done with the virtual machines or with Docker or something is, even though the developer's laptop's base OS may be Windows, we can have a Linux virtual machine that is configured the same way that the production Linux servers are going to be configured. And that means that we're actually running in the same environment. We can even I'd like to go as far as to have all the same security patches and all the same things locked down. One of the common things to happen is that as you're developing application, you have some kind of network communication you have to do, and the developers will just pick a random port to do that network communication over. And a port's just the way processes over a network communicate. The security people will tell them, we're not going to open that port. We never will. You have to pick one of these other things for various security reasons. And because they never talk to the security people, or they never reach an environment that's locked down and doesn't prevent and will prevent someone from connecting that port until sometimes into production, they don't know until they get into production that all of a sudden this doesn't work again. So pulling the developers, the production-like environment into the lower environments, and even as far as the developers' laptops, can really help with that. And we have a lot of technology that can make that easier for us to do now.